Welcome to the KBB Review podcast. I'm Andy Davies, as always, and our usual retailer Fantastic Four of Trevor, Liz, Nick and Justine are back for their first episode of 2026 and season 17. And we're starting with a discussion about the business staples of strategy, growth and investment, something that I think many small business owners struggle to find time to think about. The here and now always ends up taking precedent over the 3, 5 or 10 years from now. So we're going to ask one very simple question. If someone gave you £100,000 for your KBB retail business tomorrow, what would you do with it? People, marketing, technology, fixing the leaky roof? You almost certainly wish you had the money to invest, but how much thought do you ever really put into how you would spend it? We'll be putting that big question to Trevor, Liz, Nick and Justine in a moment. But first, the KBB Review Retail and Design Awards 2026 are fast approaching day by day. We're counting down to March the 2nd at the Hilton Birmingham Metropole. That's the Monday night of the KBB show, for those paying attention. And if you haven't booked it yet, I sincerely and genuinely cannot recommend highly enough doing it to secure your place. If you want to be in the room with hundreds of retailers, designers, suppliers and influencers, and me, then you can buy individual tickets, of course. But if you're planning to host clients or colleagues with a table of 10, you need to act quickly too, I think. Get those invitations out as soon as you can. Full details and booking are at kbbreview.com/awards. That's kbbreview.com/awards. So I will see you there. And it's a happy new podcast season to Trevor Scott from RFK and Rugby. Hello, Trevor.
Happy New Year, everybody.
Happy New Year to you. We've got Liz Pantling-Jones, Liz PJ from Lima Kitchens in Milton Keynes. Hello, Liz.
Hi, Andy, and the rest of you.
We've got Nick Warrington from Stuart J. Warrington in Macclesfield. Hello, Nick.
Hello, morning, everybody.
Hello to you. And we have Justine Bullock from the Tap End near Cardiff. Hello, Justine.
Hello, hi.
Is it a bit late for Happy New Year? I don't really know, because it's now the third week of January. But how are we all doing? Did you all have a nice time over Christmas? You, Justine and Liz have been glamorously going to Morocco. We've just been talking about that before we pressed record. I went to Formby, not glamorous. What did you do for Christmas, Nick? Sunny Macclesfield?
Sunny Macclesfield, recovering from the lurgy.
Oh, yeah, you're lurgy.
One night away in the Lake District between Christmas and New Year.
People can't see this, but you've got a bit of a New Year beard going.
Yeah, I haven't even found the time to shave.
And you're on the tray counter as well today, so just in case you're supposed to be, if you hear the ding dong, then that's it.
As if by magic.
There we go.
Up perfectly.
In that case, we'll say hello to Trevor. What did you do for Christmas, Trev?
You telling me people can't see us? I mean, I had a shave this morning, especially for this.
Well, Nick didn't, clearly.
We spent the Christmas week in the motorhome, parked on a garage forecourt in Rugby, because it seemed like the most central place to be in order to visit all the family, etc.
Well, that sounds quite sad, Trevor. I'm actually honest with you. That sounds...
Well, the good news is that the toilets were open at 7 a.m. That was the good news.
That's the most depressing thing I've ever heard. Oh, I wish I'd gone to Morocco. My God. Okay. So, right, look, we are it's our first episode, but we're already way into January. So let's do a little bit of a roundup of how business has been so far. If there's any sort of indicators going on.
Ruby, shut up! Stop it!
You've just broken Andy.
You know what? All I've got images now is that you on that garage forecourt with a dog on a bit of string, just shouting at passers-by.
I thought I'd turn the mic off. I hadn't.
Okay. All right. Let's start with you then, Trevor, before the dog starts again. How has business been so far in January? Any upticks, any positive signs at all?
Well, no, in fairness, it's not been too bad. I checked in with all the guys straight after Christmas, and we'd had a reasonably active amount of people coming into the showroom over those first couple of 3 days into the new year, and that's continued to be the form. It's a steady flow as opposed to a mad rush, but it's more than a trickle, and the quality seems to be there, and we have been selling kitchens. So the general air is one of optimistic confidence at this stage, but without being too gung-ho about it.
Okay, green shoots, that's what we're going to call them.
Yep.
Liz, how about you? We started the year with quite a few new leads and inquiries, which is obviously positive. A little bit busier on that side than when we shut up before Christmas, but yet to see anything from it. But yeah, it's early days.
Does it make you feel positive about it? There's a sign coming, there's light at the end of the tunnel, that kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think this year will be too, I hope it's not going to be too taxing in terms of getting those sales over the line. There seems to be a lot of big projects underway locally for us. So, get involved and just stay proactive and positive and looking forward.
Okay, that's a good sign. Justine, how about you?
I did such a good job of wrapping up December. We cleared every email, every phone call, we touched base with every person. But then when we came back in January, we were like, we did too good a job in December that we've had a really slow start to January. So I think being organised pre-Christmas turned out to be a blessing and a curse, really.
Says you're right for being clever and good and organised. That's never a good sign. Nick, how business has been for the first few weeks of January, whether you're seeing any positive signs?
It's been okay, and probably a little bit busier than I expected it to be. So, we don't have loads and loads of enquiries at any time, but we've had a nice steady stream of enquiries. I've had some jobs that were quoted before Christmas that have come back. One of those was confirmed on Friday afternoon. That's a nice job. So that's all good. And the trade counter similarly is pretty buoyant. We're getting enquiries for bathrooms from trade customers. So yeah, pretty healthy start to the new year, really. So maintaining optimism at this stage.
All right, nice positive mindset. That's what we like to hear. But today, we're going to talk about growth, investment, strategy, which I know all sounds like the opening of a post on LinkedIn by some kind of consultant that you've never heard of. But we're going to look at that through this very, very simple question, which is, if someone gave you 100 grand tomorrow to invest in your business, what would you do with it? Where would you spend it? Don't ask any questions where the money's come from. It's in a suitcase you found in the woods. I don't know where it's come from. Let's just assume it's some drug dealer's money, okay? So no questions asked. But where would you spend it? You've got to invest it in the business. You can't spend it on a holiday. So, Nick, we're going to start with you because this sort of came indirectly from you.
It did. And I had a good think about this over the weekend. And I think the initial reaction was, I'll get myself some bigger premises. And then I thought that I'd spend all the money on the large premises and setting that up, and then wouldn't have the money to fund all the additional resources that would be required alongside that. So moved away from that. I think that I would invest it in improving our marketing, which is close to non-existent in a consistent manner at the moment. And I am finding that as a small independent, there's that many things to do and it ends up falling off the list. So I would get an external agency on board doing that, and alongside that would couple that with some improvements on the website. And then I think in addition to that, I would bring an extra body into the business to look after the operational side of the kitchen installations. So ordering the kitchens, dealing with the subbies, snagging, and generally dealing with projects from the point where they've been sold. And at the moment, I do both of that. So I'm selling and I'm project managing. And so when we get a busy week, as we've just been talking about with enquiries, my attention gets a little bit diverted to the sales and I'm not spending enough time on the project management. And I'd like to just be able to smooth that by having a body there who deals with all of that so that I can focus on sales. And I think that if I've got more time to sell, we can put some more kitchens in people's homes.
All right, so we'll come back to all that in a bit. But Justine, what about you? What was your initial thoughts about this? Where would you put 100 grand?
We have quite a small design studio. We call it a design studio because it's not quite big enough to be called a showroom, really. We have an open office, so we're all together in the same office. I would really love to have a larger office space. So I'd probably do some sort of work to the back of the building where we could incorporate like another office space, a meeting space, somewhere where we could have for staff meetings, that kind of thing, Because at the minute we're all cramped into like one office and we try and make it work, which is great, but it would be a bit of a luxury to have more space.
But what would that bring to the business, though? What would make that an investment, if you know what I mean?
I think it would bring to the business what we would like to push on and do next, which is a space for us to think, a space for us to plan, a space for us to strategize. It's really difficult when you work in a small area with lots of people to turn your brain into a different gear. So, sometimes when we do really important meetings or planning meetings or strategy meetings, we leave because we just need a fresh space to come up with these good ideas. I think because we're a room essentially full of creatives, we need a different space in order to think creatively and think of different things. So in this space, I envisage it kind of being like a bit of a think tank area, you know, where we can really go there when we want to plan and strategize. Because it's difficult to do that at your desk. It's difficult to see reps at your desk. It's difficult to do everything in the same space all the time. I think it does stunt creativity when we want a different approach to things. So at the minute we leave, and I'd like to be able to stay, that would be good.
Liz, what about you? 100 grand in a bin bag. Someone's just plonked it on your desk. What are you going to do with it?
I think the initial answer is the more space, because we have the same kind of thing, and the displays and those kind of things. But I'm not sure what we would really get out of it. So giving it a bit more thought, I think I'd come down to get an assistant with systems and processes and getting someone external to help identify where the flaws are, because I think when you're working in that environment and space and caught up in those day-to-day issues that arise, it can be really difficult to identify yourself. So get someone in to help us do that and implement processes. And hopefully that wouldn't cost 100 grand. And then the rest would go on kind of future development, marketing strategies, where we want to go, and invest it that way.
Come back to details on that in a minute. But Trevor, because your company's a little bit bigger than everyone else's here, investment and strategy things must be a bit more part of your everyday life, if that makes sense. So where would you put 100 grand?
Yeah, well, yeah, I guess so. And indeed, if you'd have asked me this question 2 years ago, I'd have given you the answer very cleanly, which was open a third showroom. But we did that, and that was with the 100 grand that we had kicking around, not sure what to do with it. The jury's out on whether or not that was a wise investment, and we'll come back to that one at some point in the future, I'm sure. But if the same 100 grand was plopped on my desk again today, I wouldn't be looking towards opening a fourth branch. Certainly not under these current economic circumstances, I don't think. But what I would be looking at doing is working closely with the main showroom in Rugby and improving the layout of elements of that, which, because of the new showroom that we opened a couple of years ago, because of the refit that we did at Warwick about 3 years ago, the Rugby showroom has been left a little bit and is looking a little tired. There are about 4 displays that we really want to change and swap out. And we want to introduce fresh product. So we're looking at putting a bedroom in, we're looking at a home study and a media centre area, all of which have been on the promise for a couple of years. But, under the economic circumstances of the last couple of years, we've chosen to sit on our hands rather than invest in the showroom. But we will be addressing that this year. That impacts the immediate front entrance to the showroom as well, the Rugby showroom, which a little bit like Justine's in the sense that it's an open plan design office that is immediately after the first 2 displays and is all there open on display, and the staff are there and they're ready to welcome visitors into the showroom. And that was something we picked up on well over 10 years ago from visits to Wigmore Street and the way showrooms are laid out there. And we thought, well, we'll mimic this. And it worked very well. But we now think that it's time to actually enclose that office space and to give the designers some peace and quiet and some privacy, and to have more of a reception area at the front of the showroom. And that display needs changing anyway, because it's an original. Although it's had door changes a couple of times, it's still an original carcass and layouted display from 2012 when we first opened the Rugby branch. So that's a definite. The other thing would be marketing. Nick, you're absolutely right. Involving an outside agency, I can 100% endorse that as being the right thing to do. We've always used an external agency for our marketing, but if you recall from previous conversations, we switched companies a little over 12 months ago now, and that investment has been bearing quite a lot of fruit in the last 6-9 months. And we're spending more money now than we were. We're still not at the same kind of marketing spend we were 7 or 8 years ago, pre-COVID. But we want to get back up to that kind of level and making sure that it's properly targeted and properly focused, which is where using the external agency becomes so important.
So, Nick, you were the one who suggested this idea because someone asked you this, didn't they?
They did, yeah. Credit to Tony Sedgwick at BSH, actually, who dropped this into conversation when he visited.
What I found really interesting about it as a concept is whether you've thought about this stuff ever. Do you know what I mean? It kind of sparks an idea that everyone sort of thinks they should be spending money or they wish they had more money to invest, la la la. But actually, if you had it, what would you do with it? As an exercise, it's really interesting, isn't it?
It is interesting because the follow-on conversation was, well, it's 100 grand. And if you wanted to, you could probably go out and get your hands on that money. So what's stopping you? And yeah, I've thought long and hard about various investments in the past. I've looked at spending money in all sorts of different ways. And I think part of it is probably mindset and how much appetite for risk you've got. And I think that probably changes a little bit depending on how old you are and how close to retirement you are, which is ever closer. Trevor knows what I'm saying there. And I think for me, one of the roadblocks that I look at is, so if we take, initial reaction, I'll get a large premises. You start looking at it and, I can look at a few showrooms around here, and even on a smallish but larger premises, you go from spending a couple of grand a month to 5 to 10 grand a month on your rent. Then you've got your rates, then you've got your heat and light, then you've got extra bodies in it. And before you know it, you go from needing to install 4 kitchens a month to have a healthy income, shall we say, to doubling that just to cover all your extra overheads. And you see it in social media all the time. I'm doing great, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, da 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 da. And for me, it's still about the business and it's about making money. And sometimes bigger is not better. And I think showing a little bit of refrain and a little bit of strategy sometimes can actually pay dividends as far as your bank balance is concerned. And so that's a lot of it for me. But that being said, I am at the point now, as I'm getting older and don't want to be doing it all, where I realise that in order to move the business forward, I need to do less, get more people involved, for them to be properly trained in what they do, so that we've got a cohesive team, so that if I get hit by a bus tomorrow, the business doesn't grind to a halt because I've got the right bodies in place.
Yeah, I think an awful lot of retailers are probably nodding along to everything that you're saying there, that are in a kind of similar position to you. What's interesting about your answer, Justine, is that while you're talking about infrastructure, we do this to the back of it, what you're really investing in is your people. Your people as an asset to you is what you're investing in there, to give them more room to think. And I think what's interesting about this question is it's about whether or not you ever give yourself time to think about the future, because you've got a million other things to do. Do you ever think about plans or strategies in this way? But you're investing in people, aren't you?
Yeah, well, we put things in the diary so we can't not do it. So we put a review in with each person twice a year. So for a small company, I think that's quite a lot, actually, because we all sit in the same room every day. But you never really know what's going on in someone's life, and it's about so much more than the work on a day-to-day. They might be having issues at home that are affecting their work, or, whatever. So I put in the diary without fail 2 reviews per person per year. And then we do have these types of meetings that I'd like to have more often. So our workforce is all in their 30s. And I think we're actually really lucky, because a lot of the stuff that people pay external people to do, we can do ourselves. So, like a lot of the marketing, the website, stuff like that. In our room, we have the capability to do that. We just don't necessarily have the time on our hands or the space in order to say, right, someone's going to go out the back and do our website for a month. So I think more space in that respect would allow us to be able to utilise the team that we have in a better way. So I suppose it is investing in the staff and giving them a more, a nicer workplace, but also it allows them to do some of the other creative stuff that they're capable of. And I just think it would be really great. I'm all about how we can carry the team along for as long as possible and invest in them as much as possible. And also I need a space for the future.
No, it's really interesting for yours, Liz. Reading between all the lines here now. For yours, you were basically buying yourself time.
That's exactly it. I work too many hours, without a doubt. I can't sustain it. I'm not in my 20s anymore. It's not possible. But we're definitely at a point where the business needs to be less about us, and we need to have people coming in because they want us as a company, not us as individuals, to be working on their project. And I don't think more bodies is the answer to some of these things. It is about streamlining. So it may be a big cost up front, but making that investment for the future. And we never know when we employ people either how they're going to turn out. And we have had a situation more recently where we've employed wrong, and the impact of that on recruitment, reputation, results, everything is just such a big expense to kind of essentially lose and have to recover from. So that streamlining and investment is definitely a big part of it. And what I haven't said is we are investing 100,000 at the moment in purchasing another property. So if we can't be there, we need to know that whoever is in the location that we're not is representing and responding in the way that we want them to and the way that Lima responds. So it is something that is at the forefront of my mind right now.
It's really interesting, Trevor, isn't it? Because I think an awful lot of independent retailers are in this kind of position. There's a ceiling you can hit with your own hours in the day and your own ability to plan and strategize, because you've got to manage the day-to-day so much.
Well, this industry is full of, and I was one of them, ma and pa, very small micro businesses. And there gets a point during your career as an independent retailer where you are staring retirement down the barrel, and you've got to start thinking about what happens to the business and how do you evolve the business so that it can operate without you on the front line every day of the week. So you almost automatically start strategizing and start planning ahead and forward planning, and that's certainly what I did. And it was a very intentional process to build a team that could operate the business effectively without me, so that I could either sell the business or retire and still earn an income from it, which is what I'm doing, and be involved less on a day-to-day frontline basis and more in a strategic role. So strategizing is my job. Doing things like this is part of my job nowadays as well. But this is all part of the PR for the business. That is my role. It's all the stuff that the rest of the team haven't got the time for, haven't got the inclination for, haven't got the interest in. And why should they? They don't own the business. They've got their quite specific roles, whatever those might be, and they want to laser focus in on those and do them to the best of their ability. And my role as a leader is to give them the tools to do that and to strategize for improving the whole scenario for the betterment of all the staff, for the workplace environment, and for our customer journey. Which sounds really laudable, doesn't it? But genuinely, that's what I do.
Nick, you're probably in the best position to talk about this bit, but I'm wondering whether technology plays a part in all this. You like a bit of AI, don't you? Right? So would you spend some money on seeing how technology could help that efficiency a bit?
Yeah, I think I would. I've sort of made it fairly public that I'm pursuing AI in terms of understanding it and seeing how it might be implemented in the business. I'm doing some small things with that at the moment. I'm on a training course at the moment. And it's interesting how we talk about AI and people's perception of AI in terms of being able to write articles and all this sort of stuff. For me, that's not what AI is about for businesses. It's about using the AI to implement systems and workflows that make your life easier and more efficient. And I think for small businesses, I think that's where the potential value really is. I'm doing it at the moment by investing my own time in it. If I had the £100,000, then part of that would be invested in an external agency coming in and doing all that legwork for me. But I think that there's some real opportunities, shall we say, to do that. And, I've talked about it's things like, expensive project management software. To get the project management software that you would like in order for it to do exactly what you want it to do, it seems when I look in the marketplace, it goes from low level that doesn't really do what you want to do, and then it's a big chunk of money and beyond what a lot of small independents would be able to afford within the usual overheads of the business. AI, I think, will be able to develop software at low cost or lower cost that is tailored to your business. And I think that's where there's some really good potential. And that's what I'm exploring. That's one of the things I'm exploring at the moment within the business.
Is there a danger, Justine? I'm going to challenge you now. Is there a danger that you focus on the things that you know you can do or that will be fun to do or that will be interesting to do? Like, you're a creative type, so to create a creative space is interesting for you to do, and you'll be picking out wallpaper all day long because it'll be fun. But is there an argument to say that if you could invest that kind of money, that you should invest it in the things that perhaps you're not as good at or interested in, like technology or like the kind of stuff that Nick's been talking about, or administration, or the boring stuff of running a business?
Yeah, of course. And fortunately, I think that we have a lot of those things already in place that I'm happy with currently. So I'm already happy with the way that we run our admin side of things. We invested a lot of time this year in streamlining those things. And I'm a big believer in to put things in place that help your business. They don't need to cost money. So, when we started the business, we started it on, it wasn't $100,000 to start our business, basically. And we waited until we had profit and then we reinvested it. So our displays were atrocious when we first opened because I wanted it to be a true startup. I wanted us to be self-sufficient. I wanted us to generate money before we invested it in the displays. And I think I'll always be the same in that respect. I always look for the most cost-effective way to implement something. What I don't like to do is implement things that mean that I don't have a really, really good understanding of what's going on. So I prefer to do things more cost effectively. And I don't think that would change even if someone gave me $100,000. I'm a bit frugal like that. And also, I just love to know the ins and outs. So for me right now, in my 30s, it's not my goal to separate myself from the ins and outs of the business. My goal is to be right in the ins and outs of the business. So that $100,000 obviously wouldn't cost $100,000 to build a new creative office space on the back of the building. But I think I'd probably just keep the rest. I just keep the rest in the bank for a rainy day situation. I'm not a big spender. I'm not really a big spender.
You'd keep the suitcase full of cash under the bed, is what you're saying?
I would probably take a look at the suitcase and pretend it didn't exist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If I'm honest, if you did find a suitcase full of cash in the woods, it's probably best to sit on it for at least a couple of years. Let the heat die down.
My husband would not let me keep a suitcase of cash. He would march me straight to whoever I needed to give it to.
I mean, in fairness, that's
the trouble
probably
nowadays is if you did get the suitcase full of cash, you can't bank it. You can't do anything with it. Nobody wants cash anymore.
That is true. They might ask questions, Trev. That's all. That's what you're saying. So, Liz, are you by nature a strategizer and a planner in this way, or is this something that you're so involved in the day to day that you find this kind of stuff difficult?
I'd say it depends on what day of the week it is. I can vary. It depends where my focus is. I'm definitely very much involved in the creative and day-to-day elements of the business, but I'm always looking to the future. I always want to be challenged. I always want to know that I'm doing the best and that I'm as ahead or up to date as possible. I think it's in the nature of people who own their own business to remain inquisitive, and that's what it generally comes down to. We remain inquisitive. We want to be involved. We want to be busy, and that's just in the nature of who we are.
Right, I'm going to put this in the politest possible way, but this is an industry full of creatives, right? Creative people, that's kind of how it works, the designers and creative types. And chefs don't always make the best restaurateurs, necessarily. And restaurateurs don't necessarily make the best chefs. And it's when you have a combination of the two that it really works, is you get a fantastic chef and a fantastic restaurateur. I think sometimes the retailers that I meet are so focused on creating fabulousness that they don't necessarily think about how to run a business in the most efficient and profitable way. Would that be fair, Trevor, do you think?
Well, it's an interesting analogy, Andy, because I went to catering college and I studied catering management, where we had to get all the business studies stuff done, which was the core of it, and that's what stood me in good stead throughout my working life. But at the same time, I had to know how to clean the bogs, I had to know how to make the bed, and I had to know how to replace the chef when he didn't turn up for breakfast. So that analogy is perfect, really. And I wouldn't actually call myself a creative, even though I love the whole process of design, and it's the thing that drew me into the industry in the first place. I think I was always destined to become a businessman rather than just a creative designer who happened to run a kitchen business. That's perhaps why I've scaled it a little bit bigger than some other people have chosen to, because I was looking at a bigger picture than just the process of me designing kitchens for Mr. and Mrs. Smith, much as I love designing kitchens for Mr. and Mrs. Smith.
Well, look, I think the time's probably beaten us here, but this is obviously an enormous topic of conversation. But I think it's really interesting because I think an awful lot of retailers do struggle with what the next step is because they're busy dealing with today. I mean, nobody can see this, but Nick has been taking so many phone calls and dealing with so many customers while he's sat on his trade counter. You have invested in a new person who starts next week, Nick, haven't you?
I have, yes, I have indeed. And yeah, that's a good example because I unfortunately had someone leave before Christmas who'd been with us about 15 months. And spent quite a bit of time training, and has been approached by a competitor a few miles away. So I've had to get a replacement, and I've taken the decision this time to get someone in who's already got that experience. And that, again, that's part of it. That's so that actually frees up my time to get on with the kitchen side of the business, because he'll be able to hit the ground running rather than training someone up for the next 12 months.
Well, look, we're gonna follow with interest Liz's new showroom this year. When's that opening, Liz? When are you doing that?
It's going to be towards the latter part of this year. It's still with the solicitors, so who knows when we're going to get the keys.
Oh, God.
So.
Well, Nick's your expert there. Justine, what is stopping you from doing your creative studio space? What is stopping you?
What is stopping me?
There you go.
I might do it. We'll see.
There you go. We can follow that journey. Trevor, you're going to update rugby anyway.
Yeah, and the 100,000 is a great one because we've always done it. You know, every 10 years or every 5 or 7, 6 years, we always take out another business development loan of around 100,000 and reinvest it back in the business. So it's a great question because it's a process that we've been through many times over the years already.
Well, look, we will follow all these things with interest this year, but I think this has been a really good one to kick it all off with. So thank you for your time as always, everybody, and I will see you next week.
Thank
See you next week.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye-bye.